There's a process in our bodies that's absolutely wild. It can heal a cut on your finger, but it can also be the very thing that fuels some of our worst diseases. It's a total double-edged sword. Today, we're diving into this master architect of our circulatory system, a process called angiogenesis. And right away, you see the central puzzle, right? On one side, angiogenesis is totally a force for good. I mean, it's essential for us to grow and heal. But flip the coin, and it becomes this devastating force for disease. We're talking cancer, blindness, chronic inflammation. So the big question is, how can one single process be both the hero and the villain of the story?
Okay, so to really get our heads around this, I want you to picture a massive construction project. Think about it. Our body is constantly building new highways. These are our blood vessels. And it's laying them down exactly where they're needed. It's an incredible feat of engineering. So let's grab our hard hats and take a closer look at how this whole thing works.
All right, so the official definition is this. Angiogenesis is the process of forming new blood vessels from ones that already exist. This is key because it's different from, say, how our very first vessels were built from scratch when we were just embryos. So a better way to think about it is like a constant renovation and expansion project on our existing highway system. It's what our body does every single day for basic repair and growth. And you know what? Like any good construction project, this isn't just random. Angiogenesis follows a very specific blueprint. It's a super regulated, 6-step process for building a brand new, fully functional off-ramp from an existing highway. It's incredibly precise. So here it is, the roadmap for the whole build. First, you've got activation, then a little bit of demolition to clear the way. After that comes migration, tube formation, reinforcement, and finally, maturation. Let's break down every single one of these steps in this amazing biological construction project.
Okay, step 1, activation. Everything kicks off with a need. So let's say a part of your tissue isn't getting enough oxygen. That's a state called hypoxia. It basically sends out an SOS signal. This distress call triggers the release of a really powerful growth factor called VEGF. And VEGF, well, you can think of it as the official work order. It gets handed to the construction crew, which in this case are the endothelial cells that line our blood vessels. Now, you can't build something new without clearing the land first, right? So for step 2, demolition. Those endothelial cells release these enzymes called MMPs. Just think of them as the demolition crew. Their entire job is to break down the surrounding tissue matrix, literally clearing a path so the construction can begin. All right, the site is cleared, so it's time for step 3, migration. The workers get on the move. You've got these specialized tip cells that act like the foreman. They lead the charge, following that VEGF signal like a map. And trailing right behind them are the stalk cells. These are the workers building the body of the new vessel. They're literally laying down the road as they move forward. So now we have a line of cells. But that's not a blood vessel, is it? It needs to be a tube. So that brings us to step 4, tube formation. As those stalk cells multiply, they start to organize themselves into a hollow structure. This creates what's called the lumen. That's the actual channel blood will eventually flow through. And this brand new, super delicate tube is held together by basically a type of molecular glue. It's a protein that acts like a zipper between the cells. But here's the thing. This new tube is really, really fragile. It needs some serious reinforcement. So for step 5, the body calls in some specialists, another type of cell called parasites. You can just think of these as the steel support beams or the scaffolding. They wrap themselves around the new vessel, giving it strength, stability, and they even help control what can get in and out. And that brings us to the final step, number 6, maturation. The project is basically done. The new vessel gets pruned and remodeled to perfectly suit the tissue it's serving. That initial go signal, VEGF, starts to fade out, and these stabilized signals take over. The scaffolding comes down, and voila, the new highway is open for business, a fully functional, totally integrated part of our circulatory system. So this 6-step process is just incredible, right? But think about it, this can't just be happening all over the place all the time. That would be chaos. It has to be super tightly controlled. And the way our body manages this is with a really delicate balance. You can think of it like a master on-off switch that decides exactly when to build and, just as importantly, when to stop. And this whole thing really boils down to a constant tug-of-war. On one side of the rope, you have the go signals. These are pro-angiogenic factors, like our friend VEGF, and they're just screaming, build, build, build.
But on the other side, you have the stop signals, the anti-angiogenic factors, that are yelling, hold on, stop. In a healthy body, these two forces are in this perfect, delicate balance. And this balance has a name. It's called the angiogenic switch. It's pretty simple, actually. When the go signals are stronger than the stop signals, the switch gets flipped on, and we start building new vessels. But when the stop signals take over, the switch is flipped off, and all construction grinds to a halt. And honestly, the precise control of this one little switch can be the difference between health and disease. Which, of course, brings us back to that dark side we talked about at the beginning. What happens when this finely tuned switch breaks? What happens when a disease figures out how to hijack the entire construction crew for its own, much more sinister purposes? I want you to just look at this number for a second. 1 to 2 millimeters. I mean, it's tiny, right? It doesn't seem like much at all. Well, get this. That is the absolute maximum size a tumor can grow on its own. Without a blood supply, it's just a tiny, basically harmless clump of cells. But to grow into a life-threatening mass, it becomes desperate. It needs oxygen, it needs nutrients. So what does it do? It hijacks the whole system. The tumor learns to pump out massive amounts of VEGF, forcing that angiogenic switch to get stuck in the on position and essentially tricking the body into building it its very own private network of highways. And the scary part is, the consequences of a broken switch go way beyond just cancer. In diabetic retinopathy, for example, too much VEGF in the eye causes these weird, leaky vessels to grow, and that can lead to blindness. Or in rheumatoid arthritis, this unwanted blood vessel growth is what fuels the chronic inflammation that just destroys joints. In every single one of these cases, the root problem is exactly the same: a broken angiogenic switch. But knowing this, well, it reveals a really powerful new strategy for fighting back. If a broken switch is the problem, then figuring out how to control it has to be the solution. And this understanding is completely revolutionizing how we think about treatment. It's allowing us to go after the very supply lines that feed these diseases. And that's the whole idea behind what's called anti-angiogenic therapy. It's a total game changer. Instead of trying to poison the cancer cells directly with something like chemo, the idea is to just starve them. We can develop drugs that block VEGF or some of the other go signals, which essentially lets us manually turn the angiogenic switch back to off. We dismantle the highways that are feeding the tumor. We literally cut off its supply lines. So this leaves us with a pretty fascinating thought to end on, doesn't it? We've talked a lot about turning the switch off to fight disease, but what if we could learn to turn it on when we need it? Could we, say, grow new vessels to repair a heart after a heart attack, or maybe accelerate healing for people with chronic wounds? The potential here is just immense. It all comes down to finally mastering our body's own incredible construction crew.